My guest today has been a professional boxer for the past decade, and he faced his toughest challenge yet when he was diagnosed with leukemia in October 2021. In this episode, I find out how he won the fight of his life. Brian the Bull Holstein, welcome to Engage.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely my pleasure. Now, I wasn't actually expecting you to be on the road when we'd arranged to do the episode today, but so this is a first for Engage, the very first episode that's been recorded on the road. Are you headed anywhere interesting?
I had to drop my son's baseball pack to him at school. Now I'm driving about an hour and a half back the other way to head home. So yeah, so much fun.
Well, what better way to kill the time than by doing the episode here with me today? So I'm really glad that you've
Thanks.
been able to make it.
Thanks.
So you're from Columbus in Ohio. You're a three-time cruiserweight boxing champion. You've got a record which currently stands at 13-8-1. 7 of those victories came by the way of a knockout. And you were a late call-up to oppose Frederic Julan last October for the Trillaverse 3 show, where you had this health bombshell dropped on you, where you were diagnosed with leukemia. And really, that wasn't that long ago, but you're recovered and you're now looking to kickstart your boxing career as well. So it seems that a lot has happened in a very short space of time. So I'm really looking forward to talking to you today. I want to get all of the info about your career so far, that diagnosis, your recovery, and your plans to return to the ring as well. So plenty to talk about in this episode, and like I say, I'm so pleased that you've been able to join me on the show today. So before we get into the boxing side of things, I like to get a bit of background on my guest first. So you're from Columbus, Ohio. Are you born and bred there, or were you born somewhere else?
So I was born in a suburb of Columbus, um, but primarily, resided Columbus area. So I fight out of Columbus. I'm Central Ohio, capital city. I'm all over the place here. With training, living. I've lived in just about every suburb circling Columbus, including Columbus. So yeah, I'm the home state boy.
Awesome. I'm the same. I'm probably never going to move out of my village here in South Wales either, so I can totally appreciate where you're coming from in that respect. So what were you like as a kid then? Were you into to boxing then, or were you the type who was always getting into scrapes and that kind of thing, or what was your childhood like growing up?
Dude, I was a nerd, man. I was a 155 pound, soaking wet, 3.8 GPA, advanced studies. When they talk about boxing IQ, there I attribute a lot of my analytical skills in the sport to, my knowledge outside of the sport. I break down things, in a different way than most fighters typically would. So yeah, I was never this guy. I wasn't supposed to be who I am today. I was supposed to be like a doctor or an astronaut or something, and I got tired of being fucked with, being picked on. So I turned 22, 23. All that build up from all those years just kind of compounded into one. I had a bad breakup, and it just I needed a vent. I got into boxing. Turns out I had a niche for it.
So when you were growing up, then you didn't really have this fighting background, and you say that you were a nerd. You were really good at school. You were getting all these really good grades. Now nerds, they're not good at fighting. Usually they're too busy memorizing the periodic table or fantasizing about Catwoman. So at what point did you realize that you had this ability to fight?
So it was a I mean, me, like I'm the same way though. Like I still play RPGs and MMOs. Like I was a Skyrimaholic. I play WoW. I mean, I'm on New World. I play Elder Scrolls Online. Like you know, if you look at my man cave, it's a few comics shy. I need some anime posters. That's all I need. I'm fucking nerd still. Like I'm me inside. But this whole fighting thing, like I told you, needing the vent. I was tired of everybody calling me a pussy and using their words to control me. It was just that it came to a boiling point. It's about the same time MTV had that show called Made, where people that you wouldn't think to do what they were about to do would ever do it. You had some guy that was uh, a goth kid in high school, and he said, "I want to be a football player." You would never expect this goth kid with black makeup and long hair to want to be a football player. Then he jump on Made and go and play football. Like they made him into a football player. It's legit. I did something similar. I was this nerd that didn't want to be, you know, called a pussy or looked down on anymore. Uh, so I made myself into this boxer, this fighter, and it was the day I learned I had a niche for it was they have these things called tough man contests, and it's 1 minute rounds, 3 rounds, and it's just a slugfest. Just no no holds barred, gung ho, haymakers, everything.
So how did you get into the tough guy scene then? Because again, it does seem a world away from somebody who's into RPGs and all that kind of thing.
So when I went through that breakup, I was a couch bum. Uh, I was living with a guy that took me in. He was an old head in boxing. The Golden Gloves, super heavyweight class, and bragging about the glory days of amateur boxing. And he let me stay on his couch. And I remember it wasn't a very wealthy household, but he had a VCR and Mike Tyson's greatest hits, and he preached to me all the history of boxing. I watched every bit of Mike Tyson for hours and hours on end, and then would go out and hit a heavy bag in his garage trying to emulate, trying to be the White Tyson. And after about 4 or 5 months of that, every day, I said, I want to put myself to the test. Let's do this. So the tough man, you don't have to be signed up for anything. You just get online, fill out a paper waiver, and you're entered in. You pay $50. that's how I got started in it.
But surely there must be a huge difference to watching a Mike Tyson video and hitting a punch bag that can't hit you back to going into one of these tough guy contests, which I would imagine are not usually full of RPG playing bookworm types. I would imagine the opponents that are in there are going to be, as the competition suggests, tough men. So, what was that first ever fight that you had like?
So Mike Tyson had a famous quote, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, and I lived that quote. So it was I was scared shitless the first fight. I didn't know what to expect. And that's the biggest thing of fear is you know you can either let it control you or you can embrace it, face it head on and react accordingly. I chose that custom auto route, the hero and the coward, and I made the choice to be the hero. But that first fight, I fought a Latino guy, and he came out, hit me, just nonstop flurries. I hit him one time, and he went to the ground. I was like, oh shit, I got something. And he got back up, did it 2 more times. He fell 2 more times. I called the fight. That was my first win.
Right, so that was the first ever time you'd stepped into the tough guy ring, and you came out with a victory. So just tell me a bit more about this tough guy setup then. So is it like I've got an image in my head now of just this circle in some barn somewhere, like hay bales everywhere, and you're just going at it like bare knuckle. Is that accurate, or is it a bit more professionally set up than that?
This is a low, so it's a production. Like they've got a boxing ring. Tough Man Contest is the promotion. Like they have a couple online, but it's essentially hillbillies, rednecks, country folk, people that are like the bar brawlers. They come out and test their metal in in the arena. So you come out there. It's a nice event. They got the ring girls and everything, but nobody has any form of skill or technique unless they've been training on the side for amount of years. But everybody that I fought, is just haymaker supreme, and I wasn't no boxer. I had on the job training. I just had, I was cock strong and had power. I found out.
We have like the white collar boxing here in the UK, but that's usually a bit more of a professional setup where the fight is organised. You have about 10 weeks to train, and then you go into a ring and you have, I think it's three-minute rounds or something like that. But I've been to one of those as well, and that is a bit of a slugfest. But I guess with what you did there, you just sort of turn up on the day and you just take on whoever is in the other side of the ring to you.
And you fight till you lose. So it's I had three fights. Three fights. The first fight, I fought, knocked the guy down. We went one round, or we went 2 rounds. I knocked him down 3 times in the second round. Then I fought a half hour later against some Marine bro, and he was built diesel, like juiced to the extreme, and I knocked him out in the first round. And then this last guy, it was like, right after, about an hour and a half after that, this was for the championship to get my tough man champion jacket, right? And I knocked him. I'm thinking I got power, right? I hit him, I knocked him down. And I'm like, oh, I got this. I don't need skill. I just use power. I walk up to go hit him with a haymaker, and I run into a short right hand, knocks me into the ropes. As I try to go back to punch, my arm's caught in the rope. I look down, I look over, he's walking up, winding a punch. Next thing I know, I see that punch swing, and I blink my eye, and I have a guy handing me $500 on a gurney. I said, no, man, I got to go fight. He said, nah, man, you did good. You're done.
So what happened there then? Did you win then, or did he knock you down, and that was your money for taking part?
He knocked me through the fucking rope, bro, and I hit my head on the judge's scorecard table. It was a clean knockout. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I was definitely, that was my first fighting concussion. Was I don't know if it was the table, the hand, or both, but it was definitely a base. It was a good foundation to build my boxing career on.
Yeah, so that didn't put you off at all then. Was it then you thought, right, I've got a taste for this now. I wanna take this on to the next step, or did you carry on doing the tough guys for a while longer?
That was the only tough man experience that I had. Then I went. It was March 2011. I started getting an actual like boxing. Boxing. I did amateurs. I had 14 amateur fights from March 2011 till November 2011. 14 amateur fights. I went 10-4, and I fought in big tournaments. I fought in the ringside world tournaments. I fought the PAL, the Golden Gloves. Um, I was a novice in most of them, but I fought open when open guys didn't have any opponents. So I was fighting guys more caliber than me that were training for Olympics and holding my own. I remember my best fights were at the Ringside Worlds, scrapping with these Canadian bros, man. It was, they definitely, they're built different, but it allowed me to step my game up. I ended up turning pro December 2nd, 2011, that same year.
Yeah, so that was really fast then. Especially you had quite a number of fights at amateur level then in 2011 up until the November. And then by the start of December, you had your first professional fight against a guy called Jake Parsley. And he didn't last very long in the ring with you. You knocked him out in 21 seconds. What are your memories, or albeit short memories, of that particular fight?
11 seconds plus the 10 count. So I remember getting ready for the fight. My manager, the promoter, they're like, "What do you want to wear when you go out?" I said, "I want to go out like Jack Dempsey, Mike Tyson. I want black on black, black shoes, black trunks." They're like, "Done, got it." I was like, "Okay." So 30 minutes before the fight, I'm in my dressing room waiting to get my gear. They drop off my gear, pink trunks and gold shoes. So I was like, okay, these motherfuckers, I see what they're doing. So I come out, I already had a chip on my shoulder. I didn't know who this guy was. I knew he was taller than me. I knew that it was his pro debut, but I knew that I didn't have very much experience. So I'm out here making a monster of this guy already in the dressing room. But when I got the gold trunks or the pink trunks and gold shoes, all of it just went to hell. And I'm like, fuck it, I'm letting it rip on this guy. He's getting it. So I come back, I get in the corner. My trainer, Olympic gold medalist Jerry Page, he's like, just bite down and do what you do. I'm in the corner. The bell rings. I bite on my mouthpiece and I just start throwing the horns, man. Hook, hook, hook. He couldn't take it.
Did you have the same approach in that fight then, to harken back to the tough guy, where you just come out all guns blazing and just try to get it over and done with as quickly as possible?
It was exact same mindset. Mind you, I didn't plan to go out that way. It was only 30 minutes before. I was planning to go out and like try to work skill, the on-the-job training. But when I saw them trunks, man, I was like, they think I'm a joke. This is like that, calling me a nerd, calling me a pussy and stuff. That's like going back to that trauma, that childhood stuff. I'm like, I'm gonna show these motherfuckers. Mr. Hyde's coming out to play today.
So you had your second fight then a few months later in March. That was against Zachary Swalen. Now you struggled a bit in that fight then, because if we also include the ten count as well, you'd have knocked him out in 23 seconds. So at this point, were you thinking, well, this pro boxing lark is easy?
We were at the Roy Jones was there. Roy Jones Jr. He had a guy that was fighting on the card, and I remember sitting there. We were all out to eat. I'm just picking Roy's brain, and I'm like, man, just there was a lot of knowledge, right? I met Roy multiple times in the future too, but this is what started it. Uh, just you want to showcase for the greatest fighter of the fucking 90s, bro. So I come out. This dude was a built dude too. I've got some video footage of him. He was a jack, kind of like that Marine the Tough Man. Um, but it was one of those things where I'm like, hey man, ain't nobody gonna outshine me in my home state, my home city in front of Roy Jones Jr. So I came out and I did what I did.
And your first pro defeat, didn't come until April in 2013. You fought a guy called Sean Lavery, and
Yep,
that
Sean
one went the
Lafferty, yeah.
distance. Sean Lafferty. That one went the distance, 6 rounds, and you lost on a unanimous decision on that occasion. Now, I've checked through your record, and even though you've had a few defeats, a lot of those defeats have come from a decision of some kind as well. So was that particular bout then, was that a step up in class overall compared to some of the fights that you'd had previously?
So going back to the record, my record is 13-8-1, like you said. But the biggest thing of it is I'm 13-8-1 in four weight classes with a combined opponent record of wins, losses, draws, 173, 37, and 9. I fought people that could fight back. This weight class was the first time I actually dropped weight, and I dropped to light heavyweight. And I'd never fought in a southpaw before, so this is my first southpaw that actually had some finesse, some technique, and called a gift, called a curse. Starting so late, yeah, I haven't spent all that time getting beat up, since I started in my 20s, but I also didn't have all the experience. So every time I went in the ring, I was still learning, and this is one of those, experiences that I learned hard with the defeat.
You won your first title in March 2015. That was the Ohio State Cruiserweight title. That was against Joe Paintiff, 8 rounds, and you won that one on a split decision. So what was it like then, having boxed professionally for about 3.5 years at that point, to get your first title?
It was huge because Joe Painiff ain't no slouch. He's a southpaw also out of West Virginia. The good old hillbilly boys. They're built different. They're tough. They're durable. But on top of him being durable, he has a lot of finesse, a lot of skill. And the only thing that I kept exposing was shifting. Like I would fight orthodox, shift over to southpaw, load up a left hand and rip left hooks from different angles. So I pull that Dempsey roll, hit with the left hook, step in, do a little D'Amato shift left. I think I threw 47 left hooks in 3 rounds fighting them. You know what I mean? And then I had to start boxing because my arm was getting tired. Like shit.
I think it's incredible that you can remember all of these statistics from the fight. So you mentioned your opponent's combined win record. You got your punch numbers for each of your fights, and it's incredible that you can remember all of these different statistics. But after you'd won that title, then did you think then that was going to be the springboard for you then to get higher caliber fights and perhaps go on that route to getting a world title shot?
So here's what people don't know is that I was on the radar for a lot of people that were just up and coming. I was supposed to fight Beterbiev uh, the fight after that, but up in Canada, and I didn't have a passport. So, long story short, we go into ahead of the fights. I end up fighting the guy that knocked Beterbiev down, Jeff Page Jr., and I beat him for a unanimous. This guy's 17-2 when we fought. Beat him, unanimous decision. I outboxed a boxer, and I'm not a boxer. I'm a puncher. You know what I mean? Like it was a huge achievement. Definitely, winning that title definitely opened up more eyes. But I already had looks, before then, just because of my style, and I could sell tickets. People like how I fight.
The next fight that I do want to talk about is your match against Trevor McCumbee. Now that was in September 2015. Now this one you were traveling to California to fight rather than fighting out of Columbus like you'd done quite a lot up until this point as well. And this was actually your only knockout defeat as well out of your record in total. Can you give us a bit of info about how that match all came about then?
So let's start off by this. Trevor McCumbee is one of my bros now. Like that is my homie right now. We bullshit all the time, through social media or whatever. But you know, uh, going out to that fight, it was my first time, being out in California, let alone Studio City, doing the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Like, I was like, okay, this is the big time. But I still felt like I had a chance. Obviously, I had to cut weight again. It was a light heavyweight fight, and I was sitting around 200 pounds, cut down to make weight, and I was shredded. Like, I was shredded. Uh, Going into the fight, weigh-ins were good, everything was good. Going into the fight, my mindset was, I'm going to go out and I'm going to bully this guy. His style, it's maybe I could capitalize by coming out stronger than most people might typically do. Just be not normal what he's used to. So I come out and I we had an exchange and I cracked him with a left hook, and after I hit him with the left hook, I remember seeing his eyes go back, and then I'm looking over at the camera like I'm about to knock this guy out on TV. From that second on, I forgot how to fight. I got hit with another exchange, a couple right hands, left hook. He clipped me with his own left hook, and actually, I didn't know it at the time, ruptured my eardrum. And every time, if you ever been on a roller coaster, having a perforated eardrum feels like you're trying to stand up and fight while riding a roller coaster. You just have no balance. So, on top of getting hit with solid shots, he he did what he came to do. So I gotta give it to him there.
So going into that fight, then was he a more experienced fighter overall, or what was I suppose the way you were matched up?
He is an undefeated class act. I mean, he was got a good team behind him. Had, he had a good foundation of people that really had his best interest. You know, up to that point. Like it's you don't get to be double digit undefeated if you don't have a good team behind you. You know, you can have skill, but you got to have a good team, and he had both. So it's I think he's still undefeated.
And you knew that going into the fight as well, then, so you were under no illusions as to the task that was in front of you.
So the way I think of it is you're remembered by the way you get remembered. Immortality, let's put it that way. Immortality lies in remembrance. How are people going to remember you? Yeah, you could go out and beat the shit out of guys that are 4-8, or have a 13-0 record fighting tomato cans, and you go and beat this guy 13-0 that fights kids for a living. Like, you know, I want to go out and fuck with the big dogs. And I made my name across the boxing world as like the litmus test. If you want to know how good your guy is, you put him in with the bull, and you'll find out real quick.
It wasn't that long again then before you won the cruiser title again. That was about 6 months later in March 2016. You fought Armando Ancona for the Ohio State Cruiserweight title. Again, it went the distance. This time you were on the right end of a unanimous decision verdict. Can you remember anything about that fight?
Yeah, Armando was the guy there trying to make the next great white hype out of Columbus, Ohio. He had Buster Douglas and John Johnson, all those political heads in the game on his side. His dad was an IBF ref, really into the boxing game. And he worked for a title boxing club, fitness gym franchise down here. And they had all the boxers, and Armando was the figurehead for it all until I came around. I was the black sheep of the family, supposedly. And, the first time we fought actually was that first instance. He came out running his mouth, and, you know, all the hype before the fight just added fuel to my fire. So I knocked him out in the third round the first time we fought. This time for the Ohio title, he had fought a bunch of tomato cans to get his padded record up and get himself a chance to fight me again. And what did he do the whole time this time they didn't do last time? He ran the fuck away. He thought he had a big gun, and they found out who's got a bazooka, and he didn't want to get hit with it. So that's went the decision because he didn't want to get touched.
Given your track record though, that sounds like a pretty good game plan. Actually, just dance around the ring and try not to get hit.
Yep.
But later that year, then was your first of two matches against Nick Kisner. This was for the NABA cruiser title. Now, I'm not really familiar with that, but was that a step up in class in terms of the titles?
So it's the North America Boxing. So it's the WBA North America title. So the NABA North America Boxing Association, it's the subdivision WBA. So you got like your WBA, WBC, IBF. The WBA, their North America title is the NABA. This was for that a top 20 world ranking. So I had already been up as high as 15 in cruiserweight, but this was for like the official, like, hey, you are WBA top 20 on the roster. So we fought, the first time. It was different. I came out, and, Nick's, they call him Slick Nick. Again, another dude of mine. Like, after our fights, we've been homies. You know what I mean? But he's got a lot of experience, a lot of skill in the amateurs. And when we fought, I kept trying to drag him into a fight, not a boxing match, but a fight. And whether it was orthodox, southpaw, switch shift, right hand, left hand, high low, I threw everything at him the first fight, and it just didn't get the decision.
Yeah, that was another that went the full distance, 10 rounds this time, and you lost on the majority decision there. But 6 months later, you're up for another title fight. I'm assuming this time, though, you had to go up in weight then, because that was against Jeremiah Carpensy for the Ohio State heavyweight title. So you mentioned earlier that you've fought at different weight levels as well. So did you have to make weight then for that one?
Oh yeah. So the big thing with fighting Jeremiah Carpensy is Tommy Carpensy's brother. Tommy Carpensy was a light heavyweight contender of the world. Like I think he won WBC. Like he was top dog. Like Jeremiah was his sparring partner, and he was a top dog too. Just not as much publicity as his brother Tommy. But Jeremiah, I think I weighed in at 205. I was already sitting about 199. I just drank a lot of water so I could make weight. Um, and it's nothing new for me. I'll tell you another story after this. Um, Made weight. We fought. And the fight, I remember, I kept catching him, but it didn't have the same effect as him on me. He's just naturally a heavyweight. His bone structure is different. I'm naturally like a super middle light heavyweight, and I'm like, fuck it, let's play with the big boys. How you gonna get remembered? You gonna get remembered fighting bitches, or you gonna get remembered fighting the cream of the crop? So I went for the big boys.
Yeah, so that was a defeat, but a unanimous decision. Again, it went the distance, 8 rounds.
Yeah. So the going back to the heavyweight. So the first time I fought heavyweight was against Levi Bowling. That was early in my career. And Levi Bowling, I remember before, I think it was like my third or fourth pro fight, I can't remember. I think it was fourth. Um, but I remember my opponent at weigh-ins couldn't make it. Like I'm at weigh-ins waiting for them to come in, and then they no-showed. Well, this heavyweight's opponent no-showed, and my trainer Jerry Page told you the Olympian, Olympic gold medalist. He's like, "Hey Brian, man," he's like, "Why don't you fight that heavyweight?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "How much you weigh?" I was like, "I don't know, like a buck 85." He's like, "Can't you like drink some water or something, or like put on some weight?" I'm like, "I don't know." Like, he's like, "Have you weighed in yet for your guy?" I was like, "No," because he didn't show. He's like, "Come outside real quick. Come outside. We're gonna do something." I'm like, "Okay." So he goes outside. We go out to the parking lot, and he kicks a piece of asphalt, like a broken piece of asphalt, and he said, "Pick that up, put it in your pants." I said, "Why?" He said, "You're gonna fight that heavyweight." He said, "Heavyweights." I was like, "What about my shirt? I take my shit off." He's like, "Heavyweights don't have to take their tops off in Ohio. You just got to take your shorts off. If you're already fighting heavyweight, just take your pants off. They ain't gonna see." I was like, "Okay." So here I am at 185 pounds with a brick of asphalt, fucking yay big, in my belt line with a hoodie over top of it. I jumped on the scale. I was 215 from 185. I was 215 when I jumped on the scale. And that Levi Bowling guy come down. He weighed in the next day because he thought he didn't have a fight, didn't come. But now that I was fighting him, he come. He was 256 or whatever it was. And I remember they called me out. We're fighting in like a fucking field house, bro. It was supposed to be at a university, but there's a scheduling conflict, so they moved it to some bumfuck Egypt, like out in the country high school in their field house, like 1960s hardwood floor, like just ridiculous shit, right? I'm in the locker room trying to psych myself up because this is the first crazy fight I've ever done. Hey, I'm 185. I'm about to fight some fucking behemoth. Like, okay, I didn't know anything about him. I didn't know what he looked like. Didn't look up his record. Didn't know how tall he was. Didn't know how much he weighed. I'm just like psyching myself up. They call me out first. It's an elevated boxing ring, right? I'm in the ring. Then they call him out. And Levi Bowling, out comes this motherfucker walking, looking at me eye level, straight in the eyes. I'm in the ring. This dude's like 6'6", 200 whatever fuck pounds. I'm 5'10", 185, fighting heavyweight. I look at Jerry, my trainer in the corner, and I'm like, I shook my head. He already knew. He's like, fuck it, just bite down, do what you do. So I get in the corner, bell rings. I bit down and just started hitting him with fucking haymaker, 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 uppercut, split his shit. Then caught him with the left hook wonder. Here comes the thunder. Put him on his ass, and he didn't want to play no more.
The things you do to earn a living, right?
That's a fact.
So You fought Nick Kisner for the second time then in March 2018. Again for the same NABA cruiser title. Again, it went the distance, all 10 rounds. And this time you lost out on a unanimous decision overall. Do you think that fight went very similarly to the first time that you'd fought him, which would have been about 18 months prior, or was there much of a difference in that fight overall?
I think styles make fights, and whereas I was more egregious and pushing the fight as a brawler, the first fight, I tried to be more smarter and box, and he just outboxed me, and it was, you know, you can't say anything about it. You cannot outbox a boxer if they are if they have a different experience level and skill level than you. The way that I beat people by equalizer was power. And I don't you best believe I fucking hit Nick and he felt it. He's a tough son of a bitch. Like he's got heart and he's got will. And it's you can't teach that shit.
So after that fight had ended then, and you'd come away with a defeat, were you involved in any other fights then? Because I've got a gap now up until October 2021. Were you involved in boxing during that period, or had you taken a break?
I went and did an MMA fight. I was tired of everybody saying, there was this MMA fighter around Ohio that was bragging about being the baddest man in the state, using my name to like build himself up, and I'm like, all right, motherfucker, like I'm gonna go to your sport, we'll see what happens. So I go and do an MMA fight, but the commissioner, they said I couldn't fight amateur as an MMA fighter. They said I had to fight as a pro, and they said that I couldn't fight a guy that was debuting, even though I was debuting. I had to fight a guy that was at least a 70% winning record with at least 10 fights. And I'm like, why? Like I'm fucking new. Like I don't wrestle. I don't do shit. Like all I do is punch people, and I'm not even that good. I just got power. Like, well, the commissioner's like, got a fucking stick up his ass when it comes to me, and I hope you fucking air this so I can tag him in it. You know, I beat all of his golden boys. He had Armando Ancona that he was preaching to be the next best thing. He had a couple other guys that he was preaching to be the next best thing. And here comes some fucking Yahoo out of left field, me, that comes and just beats him like they're nothing. Like all this time invested in people, and here I come in and wash them off the chalkboard. So, I think that's why the commissioner had a issue with me. I fought this guy, the Illinois Golden Boy. He was 7-2 or something like that. And standing up wise, he didn't want nothing to do with me standing up. We go to the ground, and I work pretty good wrestling, defensive wrestling. I almost submit his ass, and I get caught in an armbar to a body triangle to armbar transfer, the transition of first round. So that was, I think 2019, I think is what it was, or 2020. But yeah, outside of that, really nothing. It's been waiting for the pandemic and stuff to open up because boxing was mainly closed down. MMA was allowed, I think, because Dana White had the UFC Island. It was giving everybody a reason to let MMA be allowed. But boxing, you know how it is. It's all politics about who you know and what they'll allow. So it took a little bit longer to get back in the ring.
And I suppose then that's what led to that opportunity come up in October of 2021 when you were a late call-up to face the French boxer Frederic Julan as part of the Trilliverse show.
You know what the real story is, though? You ever hear of a guy named Tyson Fury? So his brother Tommy Fury, I was supposed to fight him on Triller 2 or on Trillerverse 2 here in Cleveland, Ohio, when they had it with Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley. And Tommy's management said I'm too tough of an opponent, turned me down. So Triller, looking out for me, put me on the Triller 3, the next promotion after, and that's how we got the shot. So yeah, I told you, man, I've been making noise. It's just I've been under the radar, but I've been making noise.
Yeah, you most certainly have. But you were called up then for this fight with Frederic Julan, and that's where everything kind of, you had this bombshell dropped on you health wise then, and which came up when you were going through some pre-bout checks. How close to the fight was that then when you were having this medical?
Dude, so I was there a week before doing all the medicals. I had to go. New York State Athletic Commission don't play games, especially guys that are older in age. I was 33 at the time. Anybody over 30 with X amount of fights, they put through a gauntlet. They give you the MRI, CAT scan, EKG. They do a blood deal that's different. Usually when they do blood, states will do like a hepatitis B, C, HIV. They call it the fighter trio. New York State Athletic Commission, they did a CBC complete blood count to check for any irregularities and all that shit, along with COVID testing and blah, blah, blah. So I just went to weigh-ins. I'd already been there for a week. It's that Friday night at weigh-ins. I made weight. I went from 192 pounds to 175, whatever, 176, whatever it was. Made weight. Um, they had the press conference. About an hour after the press conference, I had a bunch of suits come up and tell me I need to go to a different room. We need to have a talk. I'm like, oh fuck, I got COVID. So I'm sitting there thinking I got COVID or whatever. I don't feel bad. I'm like, all this fake fucking testing. They don't fuck me. New York fucked me is what I was thinking, right? And then they ended up telling me, no, your COVID test came back negative. They're like, your blood had some irregularities. You need to get home ASAP. We're giving you a plane ticket tonight. You need to go see an oncologist. I was like, what the fuck's an oncologist? So they look it up. It's a cancer doctor. And then led me to being over at the James and getting treated, diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia. So they told me my white blood cell count was over 325,000 uh, when I got my blood tested. A normal person should have like 7 to 9,000. Critical's like anywhere from 15 to 20,000, and I had 325,000 plus. They're like, how are you even walking right now? They're like, how are you like not in a wheelchair? How are you not stroked out? How are you not dead? I thought my blood was coming out when they were taking blood. I thought it was coming out pretty thick. I thought it was because I was dehydrated, not because I had so much fucking white blood cells in it.
But you didn't feel unwell or anything like that at this point. Then this is just a complete shock.
I thought it was, I felt tired. You know what I mean? Like I would feel tired more. I thought it was just age, ring rust. Like I could only spar 6 rounds before getting tired, whereas before I would go, 15, 20, relying on skill and shit. But what are these people doing? See, first, people stopped at the green light for fucking 10 seconds, not going. No, yeah, man, it's ended up being it all started making sense with the diagnosis. You're like, hey, the stuff that I didn't think about, now I'm thinking about. Those night sweats I was having wasn't just because of the weight cut, it's a symptom of the leukemia. Oh, hey, it wasn't that I was just old or ring rust. It was that I had no blood oxygen count because there's so much white blood cells. My body didn't have enough time to make red blood cells. Oh, hey, not to mention my hemoglobin was in the shitter, like, because it wasn't getting enough iron in me because of the leukemia. A lot of stuff started coming apparent, but it's now it's smooth sailing. So it's been an unexpected 180-degree turnaround.
So how long do you think that you had it then before it was diagnosed?
It could have been like half a year because I felt like that way for like 6 months. I just didn't think about it. You tough it out.
And do you think that it was caught early then? Because I'm wary that this was only last October, so we're only talking a period of about 5 months or so, and now you're talking about going back into the ring again. So presumably the diagnosis and the treatment was quite quick.
Well, that's depending on how long I had it, it wasn't expected to come around my body. Uh, what do you call it? It was I think it just reacted the way it should have, because they call it your BCR, your percentage of cancer cells that are contaminated in your blood. So your percentage, let's say my percentage was anywhere from 50 to 70, going up and down, up and down, up and down, and it was going to stay like that. Which is why I had to take chemo pills for life, is what they're saying. That was management. I was going to have 50% cancer cells, and the chemo pills were going to keep everything in check from going any higher or any excessive. So I got a call like I don't know 4 weeks ago that my BCR went from 56% down to 0.9%. My counts were down. My counts were down to normal, but my percentage was still like in the 50s. Um, but they said my counts are down and my percentage was at 0.9%. I was like, you mean I'm in remission? Like, we're not saying that yet. They're saying you need to go. Dr. Babahani, your oncologist, is going to talk to you and let you know about steps moving forward. So he called me like a week later, had me do another blood test. He said, now your blood's at 0.04% BCR. I was like, oh man, so what does that mean remission? He said, well, we look at remission as 0.0001% BCR over the period of a year. He said, this is a disease that is with you. Regardless, your body just has it. But is it manageable? Yes, but it's like 10% remission rate. He said, but the way you're looking, it's very possible you could be one of that 10%. So we'll see what happens.
And are you still on medication, or are you still having any treatment at the moment, or has that all finished now?
I take a pill every day. Sometimes every other day I forget, but don't tell him. But so far everything's doing good.
Okay, excellent. And has it affected the way that you train, or are you still able to do everything that you were able to do up until about 6 months or so ago, or how has that affected things?
Oh yeah, I mean it's a night and day difference. Overall mental well being too. It's a when you become this person for a decade, like I identified as the bull. You know what I mean? Like it was my persona, this guy that this mask I put on, and then when somebody takes that mask off of you, and it's not you taking it off, it's somebody else saying, "Hey, this shit's gone." It put me through a little bit of a dark spell for a few weeks, and when I got like I started getting used to the new normal. Like I was being okay, being myself again, being just me, just Brian, whatever. And then I get hit with, hey, this shit, is about you're almost in remission. It's like somebody gave me my mask and said, hey, you're cool with who you are now. You finally accepted yourself, but now you have this that you can also have on top of it. It's like I don't know. I just have a different outlook on things. Like my whole perception of things, like fighting and everything wise too. Like I'm so much more appreciative of the training time that I'm able to get. My fucking strength gains are coming back. I need to work on my cardio more, but you know, one step at a time. But it's been a good move so far. Everything's been on the up and up. Everything you just roll with the punches and trust the process.
And you're actually looking to make a comeback to boxing, but bare knuckle boxing rather than just the regular boxing. So, what was the decision behind that?
So remember, I told you I was supposed to fight Tommy Fury, right? They backed out. So I had reached out to Nate Shook and David Feldman over at the BKFC, and I said, hey, they were trying to get me as on this fight. They still have me as an alternate, but I'm trying to fight now. Do you guys have anything lined up? And I reached out to Kevin Smith, Smith Brothers, my manager for the bare knuckle, and I said, "Hey, man, I'm ready. I'm ready to fight. Like if you can line something up, let's do it." So they ended up talking, with the BKFC, and it was supposed to be a fight with Rickles, David Rickles, but then something happened with another opponent for another champion, so they ended up taking Rickles, and I didn't have nobody, so it was it led me to fight on the Triller card. So bare knuckle was first. It was Triller 2. I didn't get to fight Tommy Fury, so I went to try to fight BKFC. BKFC I was supposed to fight. David Rickles got taken from me, which led me to fight on Triller verse 3, which led me to get leukemia. After this leukemia, come back, put all over social media the medical clearance and shit, and reach back out to Kevin, my manager for BKFC. I said, hey, man, how about we reach out to Dave and, try to get something going? He said, let's do it. So I made that post and tagged David, and I was like, hey, man, how about we make this a full circle comeback? I was supposed to fight on Triller against Frederic Julan, get diagnosed with leukemia, and then Triller just bought a majority stake in the BKFC. So coming back to fight for them would essentially be coming back to Triller. Fucking full circle. You can't fucking write these shit. This shit out of movies, bro.
Yeah, it sounds it as well. It also sounds like you're returning somewhat to your tough man roots as well by going into the bare knuckle side of things.
Oh yeah. They don't want to play with the big boys.
Have you got any dates or anything like that penciled in then, even if it's just provisional at this point?
So nothing is penciled in. They were looking at April, then May, then you know how it goes. Until it's on paper, then I'll believe it.
So at the moment then, you're just training and biding your time.
That's pretty much it. I'm looking more progressive though. I mean, it's a story that is gonna get a lot of people. So as far as marketability, it's I think they're just trying to figure out, how to do it the right way to make the most of it. Which fucking, it's a win for me, win for them. It's scratching both backs. So, just come out and do what I do.
Do you think you'd also return to the, I'll call it the regular boxing ring as well?
I think there's always an opportunity. It's right now people are glorifying undefeated fighters, and you got to look at, okay, A, who the fuck are they fought? Are they fighting a bunch of tomato cans? B, do they have a management team that's putting money behind them? Are they the promotion, like the sole promotion, like, oh, hey, yeah, Golden Boy has a bunch of great fighters, but who the fuck, do you know any of them? No. Like, who the fuck are they? I don't have any manager. I don't have any management, but I'm talked about in whispers about, oh, you don't want to fight him. He's too tough, blah, blah, blah. I thought I was a nobody, bro. Come fucking beat my ass then.
Well, even if you are a nobody, you're certainly an inspiration, and the way that you've handled what was thrown at you recently, and you're coming back healthy, and you're looking to make that competitive return as well. I'm sure you're going to be an inspiration to many. But do you have any words of advice for anyone who's either thinking about getting involved in boxing, or perhaps is up and coming in that sport?
Forget what you know. Look at history. People will teach you, but you need to learn for yourself. I didn't. I take everybody has a playbook. I would take things that work for me out of their playbooks and apply it to my own. One of the biggest things I wish I'd known starting out: good feet make great hands. And if you don't know that, you better figure it out real quick. If you don't have footwork, you're breaking the kinetic chain. You're not able to transfer power. Everybody wants to throw arm punches and everything. It's without your feet, you're nothing. Good feet make great hands. I'll leave it at that.
That's some great advice, sir. I think that's a great place we can leave it on as well. Brian, I want to thank you so much for joining me on the show today. Now, if people want to find out more about you, where is the best place for them to find that information online?
Google. You get me on social media, man. At the Bull Champion on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Brian the Bull Holstein, right there.
Okay, great. I'll get all the links from you as well once you've eventually parked up, and I'll put them in the description as well, so everybody can get easy access to those links, and they can they can continue to follow your journey and buy those all important pay-per-view tickets when you do eventually make your competitive return in the ring as well. So I just want to say thank you once again for joining me on the show today. It's been fascinating listening to your story. It seems like so much has happened to you in a very short period of time, but it is fantastic to see that you've come out the other side, and you're looking you're looking fit, you're looking strong, you've got a smile on your face, and I can only see good things happening for you in the near future. So that's fantastic to see. So thank you once again, and I'll look forward to following you on social media.
Thank you, David. I appreciate you having me on here, my friend.
If you enjoy Engage, please show your support at engagersclub.com, our exclusive members-only club with enough content, training, and behind-the-scenes access to keep you going until the next episode. That's engagersclub.com. Also, please rate and review this podcast wherever you download them. Stay engaged.